Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Turf Today, presented by Toro. My name is Adam Kershane, one of the co-hosts of the show, joined by Brian Laurent, and today, everybody, we got an exciting one. One of the coolest interviews we've done, and with an exceptional person. We're very, very grateful and honored to have on the podcast today the one and only Mike McCormick, superintendent at Oakmont Country Club. And he's a fan of the show too, which is so cool. We met Mike down in San Diego. Was such a beauty, such a great guy. This would be an unbelievable person to work for, and once you dig into this episode, you will certainly see why. Little announcement for the show: we are going to be working with the USGA, and we're going to be recording a series of podcasts that are basically green section record reviews, featuring all the agronomists and different articles and things like that. So Brian and I are very excited to be presenting that to you. They're going to be separate episodes to this. It's not going to change up this show or interfere with the show at all. This will still be coming out every Tuesday. These will just be, I think we're going to do 6 this year, special episodes that'll kind of drop on different days of the week throughout the year. So very excited about that. There's going to be a lot more information coming about that. We just want to highlight everything the USGA is doing and help out in every way we can. So we don't really have too much else for you guys this week. Brian is traveling quite a bit. He's bouncing around, and this was part of a 2-part interview that we did with Kyle last week. Do not forget that this thing is recorded on the Superintendent Network, and check out the SN page on YouTube for all of these video podcasts. All right, what are we waiting for? Let's just get right into this thing.
Gentlemen,
what's going on?
Yeah.
how we doing?
Look at that
Coming in
background.
hot, brother.
Coming in hot, baby.
I love it. I love it. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing wonderful. How about you guys?
Pretty good. We were just talking to your buddy Kyle there from the caves. He was chirping you the whole time.
I can only imagine.
Yeah. So,
Kyle's a great guy.
oh, he's a beauty. It was a great interview.
Yeah, he's coming out for the Open this year. I'm hoping to go out to his event as well. So he's a close friend, and got a lot of respect for him.
How many events do you go to be a part and support with some of your buddies kind of in the network?
Honestly, not a lot. However, I've always kind of been reluctant to leave home base, especially during the season, but there's a handful of guys throughout the industry that have supported me routinely through my career that I really feel obligated to kind of reciprocate and support them when they have events. So yeah, I haven't done a ton of them, but I've been back to Oak Hill a couple times. I was at Phil Kafari's place this year for the Junior Am, and yeah, enjoy those experiences.
Which, if I'm not mistaken, we almost guilt tripped you into going up to Phil's place, right?
Yeah, that's a true story. So I forget when that was. What was that, in August? Is that correct?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. He had the Junior Am going on. We had several projects, in kind of mid construction completion at Oakmont going on, and middle of summer, it was hot. I was driving into work at 4 a.m, listening to your guys' podcast, which I thoroughly enjoy, and I'm listening to it, and Phil, as always, he's a riot, and he said something along the lines of, I think Mike's coming out for a day at some point during the week, and I got into work. I think I worked a couple hours in the morning, hopped in the car with one of our assistants, drove out to Michigan, like 4.5 hours, walked the course with Phil. He didn't know I was coming, so that was fun. And then rolled back that night. So, yeah.
Turf Today is brought to you by Toro. Innovation is a word that companies use a lot, but what does it really mean? For Toro, it's about more than chasing the latest fad. It's about understanding what's important to you and helping you solve challenges you face in your day to day. So, whether you want battery power that lasts longer or technology that works smarter, you can count on Toro to keep you ahead of the game. Visit Toro.com and see how Toro is always solving and always evolving.
That was an unexpected trip because yeah, you were gonna go, and then like you said, you guys you had a bunch of stuff going on, and then I saw you there at lunch or dinner, maybe I can't remember which one it was,
Yeah.
but like, whoa, this is a pleasant surprise. So yeah, that was awesome that you were able to make that trip over.
Well, I think that's part of the coolest thing. Our business is so unique in the fact that you build these unbelievable relationships. And I really don't think any other business is like that, because the reality is most businesses, you're not working 7 days a week, whatever, 360 days a year. And so you build these bonds with people. And then, as people move through their careers and find their own success, being able to share some of those experiences with guys that have, you kind of came up with is in my opinion, one of the best parts of what we do.
I would assume you have a pretty big network of guys. So, hosting the US Open this year, it's going to be a big one. What does that mean for guys that are coming out to support you? Like, do you kind of have to have a bit of a short list, or is it just the more the merrier?
Certainly, I'm very fortunate. I have an unbelievable network of guys, and we can get into kind of my career path in a bit, but I was kind of unique that I worked for a few different superintendents who all have massive networks. So I kind of have, you look at like college football, a lot of like assistant coaches that move on to head coaching jobs, like they come from the same tree. Like my tree kind of goes off in like several different directions. And I've really tried through my career to maintain relationships with guys from each kind of section of that network. And I'm really honored that a lot of those guys from my career, from like, the course I grew up working on when I was 15, have guys coming from that course all the way through my internships. Obviously, a lot of, Oakmont alumni are coming back. So that means the world to me. And having those guys here for the championship, um, provides an immense sense of relief, just having that many talented eyes on property, kind of overseeing everything that's going on, guys who know the property. It goes a long way. So, we have a long way to go to get to the first day of championship week in June. But once we get there and we have all that talent on site, you know, we'll be able to control everything we can control.
So let's take that step back. Tell us kind of how you found this industry, and tell us a little bit about your career path here, your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I was born and raised in Sudbury, Massachusetts, about 20 miles west of Boston. And I think, like a lot of guys in the industry, I fell in love with golf at a very young age. I can, I was and still am to this day absolutely obsessed with Tiger Woods. So I have a lot of memories of, watching Tiger win his first major at Augusta in '97, and kind of just fell in love with the game. And um, there was a kind of local 9-hole golf course that they had a really kind of affordable summer membership for juniors, and my parents used to drop me off there in the morning, and I'd kind of play golf all day. And kind of through that experience, I met this guy who is still a close friend to this day. I think at that time I was probably 11 or 12. He was probably 14, 15. His name's Harris Schneer. He works for Tom Irwin now. Met him at this 9-hole course called Twin Springs. It's no longer in business. He worked at this place called Stowe Acres, and I thought he was pretty cool. He told me about his job. I was like, man, I want to do that. So I went into Stowe Acres, met with the head pro there, a guy named Dave Carlson, who's still at Stowe Acres, and begged him for a job. And I think I was 12 at the time, maybe 13, something like that. So not sure how labor laws were back then, but I wrote him a letter telling him that I'd work there for free. I think he had that letter hung on his wall for a while, but they offered me a job. I started out washing golf balls, washing carts, picking the range by hand. Fell in love with that. And then I think over a period of a couple of years, I would watch the maintenance team out on the course. I thought that was really cool. At some point, the superintendent, Eric Koskinen, who is now the general manager of Aquatrols, he asked me if I wanted to jump in on the maintenance team. I did, and just fell in love with it. And I think at that point I was 14 or 15. Eric had gone to UMass. He recommended, I knew that I wanted to pursue this as, my career. It's all I ever wanted to do. So I applied to UMass. It was the only school I applied to. I never even visited UMass until my first day in class was the first time I went to the campus. So I applied there and had all intentions of going back to Stowe Acres for my first internship at UMass. I was actually in the Stockbridge School in the associate program for the first 2 years. So a guy in the turf club asked me if I wanted to come out to the International for a member guest and help them cut greens for a weekend while I was at UMass. Go out there, meet this guy named Dick Bader, who I had never heard of in my life. He asked me if I wanted to go intern there. I went back to Eric Koskinen at Stowe Acres, asked him for his thoughts, and he was like, yup, go, do it. Don't even think about it. And there's been a bunch of these kind of inflection points through my career that, I could have gone one way or the other. And I do think literally, I love Stowe Acres. And I think there is a different life path that I could have still been at Stowe Acres. But, I had certain people push me to make the right decisions through my career. So Eric sends me to the International. Turns out this guy, Dick Bader, was the superintendent at Oak Hill and Pine Valley and Marion and on and on and on. And we could do a whole podcast series on stories from that 3 months working for Mr. Bader. I was 19 at the time. But he really lit a fire under my ass. I saw, kind of this whole new level of turf maintenance, and I loved it. And he pushed guys, and we called it Bader Boot Camp, and it was militaristic in the way that he managed people, and that was exactly what I needed when I was 19 years old, right? And I remember just being so intimidated by this guy working for him, losing sleep at night. What mistake was I going to make the next day? What was he going to yell about me for? And kind of one of the best stories from that whole experience got to the last day of my internship, and I have a little meeting with them, and he tells me that I was the biggest disappointment of his 40-year career in the turf industry, and that no one will ever hire me. I should get out of the business. And I just remember I'm 19. I just put all this time, effort, didn't take a day off the entire summer, sunrise to sunset every day. And I was just crushed. And, looking back on that, that was the final test, right? Are you mentally tough enough to have someone say something like that to you and knuckle down even harder? So it turns out he calls me a week later and he's like, here's the deal. You're going to go to Oak Hill next year. You're going to work for Jeff Corcoran. You're going to do great for him. That's the right next step for you. So I was shocked that he called me. Turns out, whatever, 15, 17 years now later, I still talk to Mr. Bader on a daily basis. I had lunch with him in December back at his house. So he's been a massive factor in my career. So I ended up going to Oak Hill, do another internship there. So, had a bunch of people I worked with at the International that I'm still very close with to this day. Same thing at Oak Hill. Finish up the season working with Jeff. And Jeff gave me the, same deal, walked into his office, okay, what's the next step for me? And he said, you should either go to Muirfield Village or you should go to Oakmont. And I remember asking him, well, what's the better option? And he said, you need to choose. It's your job. They're both great. Pick one and roll with it. And I went home that day, Googled both of the courses, and certainly wasn't super familiar with Oakmont at that point in my life. Looked it up. I've always been into golf history, golf architecture. Um, Kind of started reading about Oakmont. Thought it was their history, the championship legacy was really unique. The design of the golf course. They had the U.S. Women's Open that year, so I ended up going up to Oakmont, doing my last internship at Oakmont. And by the way, somewhere in there in college, I did a winter internship for Jim Roney at Saucon Valley too. So got that whole piece too. But intern at Oakmont, fall in love with the place. Graduated from UMass, had my U-Haul packed, like finished my last exam, skipped my graduation, drove out to Pittsburgh, started working at Oakmont. And over the course of, I was there for 7 seasons, worked my way up from a crew member to an AIT, then a spray tech, second assistant. I was a first assistant in 2016 through the U.S. Open. Right after that, got my first superintendent opportunity at the Apple Club in Rye, New York. Moved out there, like literally couldn't have had a better first opportunity as a superintendent. Did a couple major renovations at Appowamus, irrigation, pump station, and loved that place. Unbelievable membership. They gave me all the resources, tools I needed, and I likely would have stayed there for probably the rest of my career. However, in August of 2022, probably the most influential mentor of my life, Dave D'Alessandro, calls me and he said, I'm stepping down at Oakmont. Are you interested in the job? I met my wife at Oakmont. She was the event coordinator here. We started dating in 16. Her whole family's from Pittsburgh. So, from a family perspective, it was a no-brainer. And obviously, like for me, dream come true to be able to come back to Oakmont. I've always wanted to host major championships. So ended up getting that opportunity, came back in 22, and here we are today. So thinking back on my career path, pretty wild. But I've been at this since a very young age. It's something that I've loved from the very first minute, and I still love it today.
Well, it's a heck of a journey, man. And we'd love to ask you just, we're going to talk about Oakmont quite a bit, obviously, but I'd love to ask you about that first job, moving to New York and kind of taking the, move away from Oakmont and everything like that. Just take us through what that was like, that transition.
That opportunity came up, the grounds chair at Appowamus came out and played Oakmont. And a lot of guys, a lot of assistants at Oakmont get superintendent jobs this way, but someone comes from another club, comes out to Oakmont, sees the conditions, and they want an Oakmont guy at their club. And that's what happened to me. So Appowamus reached out, and I had never heard of it in my life. And I remember, honestly, I called a few different people, and they said, Appowamus, it's a family club, it's a racket club with a golf course, and you don't want any part of it. I went out there, met with this guy, Bob Dotto, who was the grounds chair at the time. He was running the search firm, and this guy was just like uber passionate about the property. Appowamus was founded in 1890, one of the oldest clubs in the country. Had great bones. They hadn't done any type of substantial improvements in like decades. And it was abundantly clear that the membership wanted to turn this place around, right? So I fell in love with the place, went through the interview process, ended up getting offered the job. I moved out there. And from day one, when I got there, they had just hired Keith Foster. He put a master plan together. So my first full season, we did green expansions on every green, rebuilt all the bunkers, tees, like 10 acres of fairway expansions, removed hundreds, if not thousands, of trees. So, when I walked in there, like there was only room for improvement, right? Like the only place to go was up. And again, they gave me all the resources, tools. We did that, came back a couple years later, did another kind of like second phase, more bunkers, more tees, a little bit more work around the greens. Then we did an irrigation system, we did a pump station. And while this is all going on, we're also enhancing conditioning. And, I'm pretty proud. I had an unbelievable team at Appowamus, guys that just, they grinded like all day, right? And this is like pre, you know, me having kids. So like we were literally there every hour of the day into the night and like just loved it. And we got to that course, to a level that, I don't know if it was the best conditioned course in the area, but it was certainly up there. And looking back through my career, that's one of the things I'm proudest of is, that Appowamus experience, taking that golf course to what we got it to, and then the Oakmont opportunity came.
All the mentors and everything that helped you along the way, did they have you prepared for that first job, or did you get there, it's the first time you're kind of in control of everything?
Yeah.
Were you ready for that, or was it like you mentioned, is it kind of like drinking from a fire hose where like, oh man, what's going on here now? What do I do?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm not sure there's like a period of my career where I haven't felt like I'm drinking from a fire hose, candidly, but it's something I've learned to embrace. But to answer your question, guys ask all the time, like, how do I know when I'm ready for a superintendent job? And quite simply, like, yes, like you get to a level where you have the confidence that if you can't make the right decision, that you have the resources to help you make the right decision. But that being said, you're never 100% ready for that first job, right? And I went in there, and there's some pretty big cultural differences, right? One of the things about Oakmont, we have a staff of about 45 guys. Most of them have college degrees, and no offense to anyone, but that certainly wasn't the case at Appowamus. And I walked into a crew where most of the guys didn't speak English, so that was like big culture shock for me. And I had to kind of relearn how to communicate with people, how to manage people, how to lead. And the way we did it, I used my network. I got a great assistant from Oakmont. Jeff Corcoran sent me a guy. Hired another guy off TurfNet. Kind of just needed another body. That guy ended up being exceptional. So we had an unbelievable team, and we just worked and worked and worked until the place started going in the right direction. So I think when you get that first superintendent job, you might not feel like you know all the answers, but you know how to get to the answers. And that's kind of the fun part about it, right? To some degree, you're figuring it out on the fly.
Did you ever think that Oakmont would come calling, or were you kind of planning on being there for a while? Was it tough
No,
leaving?
in a million years, I never thought I'd have this opportunity. Dave D'Alessandro, like I said earlier, he's been an enormous influence on my life, and he was someone when I was at Appowamus. I was probably on the phone with him at least once a week, right? Picking his brain. Dave, here's the newest way I've found to kill grass. What should I do? What would you do? Help me out here. And, Dave is, by far like the most technically proficient superintendent I've ever met. Super knowledgeable, unbelievable leader, motivator, you name it. So in my mind, I'm like, Dave's the best of the best. Like he's never leaving Oakmont. So, I think I always knew like there was probably a list of maybe 5 to 10 courses I would leave Appowamus for. Oakmont was probably at the top of the list. However, I never thought that opportunity would come.
Some of the guys, your mentors,
Yeah.
Bader, Corcoran, Jay-Z, D'Alessandro, Roney. I mean,
Yep.
like the who's who, what are some of the big lessons that you really have stuck onto from those guys that really have helped you and are a big part of your leadership style now?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And in case any of these guys listen to this, I'll be slightly careful, but every single one of those guys had a completely different style of managing and leading people. However, every single one of them had the same goal and the same standards and expectations. And basically, like, I think it always comes down to in our industry, like, and this started with Bader, like having a sense of urgency that you can never go fast enough. And, while you're going 100% speed, like, you got to have the attention to detail and you better be producing work that's as close to perfection as you can. So they all pushed me in different ways. And I think, through all those experiences and seeing different types of management styles and agronomic programs, you name it, I slowly crafted my own way of managing and leading, which is, probably very different than any of those guys, but it's a kind of a conglomeration of hopefully some of the more positive things I picked from each person.
Just take all the best you can from all those guys, and the fact that you have a list of people you can call and work with is fantastic.
Yeah.
Take us through kind of joining Oakmont. What was that like going from, like you said, a smaller staff that you kind of had to work with every day to showing up with this large group of professionals?
Yeah, so a couple things, so kind of the polar opposite from Appomattox. Like Appomattox, the only place you could go was up, right? I come into Oakmont and, it's already, I'm saying this as humbly as I can, one of, if not the best conditioned golf courses in the world, right? So, in my mind, taking over this role, it's like, okay, how can I, A, continue that, and B, find ways to build upon it? So that was the first challenge. The second thing was walking into Oakmont, the team that existed here, and even more so, the culture that exists at Oakmont is unlike anything I've ever seen. So like that was the other thing in my mind. Like, okay, like how do we maintain and build upon conditioning on the golf course, and then how do we do the same thing from a team culture standpoint? And that was honestly like I knew I could do the job from an agronomics perspective. The culture thing, was something that I was probably more cognizant of not messing that up because at Oakmont, like the expectations we have on a daily basis, you need to have an exceptional team. And you have to have people that are bought in to the program and the culture. And if you don't, it just simply does not work. So came in here, Dave hung around for a while, helped me through my first year. We did a massive restoration project in 2023 with Gil Hance. Dave was around for that. The assistant team, Matt Clausen, Devin Rice, Grant Cushman, when I came back, like just off the charts good. And I think like the team, the culture that existed, just I found like it maintains itself. Like the guys that have been here, they know the standard. When new guys come in, they push that standard off to the new guys, and you either buy into it or you don't. We really haven't had that experience, candidly, but it's all about culture here. So it was again, drinking from a fire hose coming in here, massive project. We did massive renovation to our entire grounds facility, new mechanic shop, break room, locker room, mud room. Right after that, started the Gill restoration project. In conjunction to that, we redid our irrigation system, our pump stations. Right as we finished that, we moved into a driving range renovation that we worked on. Technically, it's still going on as we speak, but we're wrapping that up. Bunch of other kind of USGA infrastructure related projects. So it hasn't stopped here from a project perspective. And at the same time, we're trying to build conditioning standards on the golf course, get the golf course ready for the this year's US Open. So it's just been an unbelievable experience. It's been a whirlwind, but the team that we have here at Oakmont couldn't do it without them.
A-Plus Rewards are back. The Andersons A-Plus Rewards program offers turf managers the best opportunity to save on our newest and most popular products this fall. Earn rewards on purchases of Contec DG, Voltec SG, Castaway DG, Carbon Coat, and more. Don't miss this opportunity. The average reward for last year's program, more than $250. For a complete list of qualifying products, visit andersonspro.com. Offer available to U.S. customers only.
So much to digest from what you just said, and so many follow-ups that I've got going in my mind right now. But I want to go back to, you mentioned Dave being one of the more technically savvy superintendents out there, but then also, the culture, and it really being more of a question of the culture there. And if you're able to kind of continue that, talk about what makes a great superintendent. Talk about the balance between being technically proficient versus being a good leader of people, and how do you balance those, and maybe which do you even see as the most important part of the job?
Yeah, I think that's a great question.
Full of them,
and
full
you
of
can
them,
look
Mike.
at any of the top superintendents in the country, and um, you get kind of a hodgepodge of different personalities and different strengths, weaknesses. You look at a guy like Dave, right? And like he can give you a molecular breakdown, like literally like PhD level of like chemistries, soil chemistry, like fertility, like you name it, right? I'm not like that. I know enough to do my job, but I'm more of like, okay, I've acquired experience through the years. I've seen things go wrong. I've seen solutions to every problem pretty much imaginable, how we got out of those situations. And, like in my mind, like, I'm constantly like taking mental notes, like, okay, we did this at this point under this condition, this weather. And that's kind of like how I go about things from like agronomic program, right? I'm more of, I don't want to say a gut feel guy, but I'm probably more of a gut feel guy, right? When it comes to making agronomics decisions, then it gets into like leadership styles, right? You have different guys that are like big, motivators, like pep talk guys. I am probably more flatline than some people where this is a humbling business, right? Like, I don't care how good you are, like things are going to go bad at some point in your career. It's happened to me many times. I think the best superintendents are the guys that when things do go bad, they get out of those situations the quickest. But at the end of the day, I think the one common trait you'll find in any good superintendent is they're good communicators, right? I think as a superintendent, you have to communicate to such a various group of people, whether it's like interdepartmental, the membership, board of governors, owner, grounds chair, committees, you name it. And then you have the whole flip side with contractors and vendors we work with, where you have to communicate, right? And I think you talk about communication, it all comes down to building relationships. And that's something I've tried to focus on through my career is like, okay, I know what my weaknesses are. What I can do is build relationships. And if I can build really strong relationships, whether it's with the people I report to or the people I work with, or the people that support me, like, and I have that support system, like no matter what happens, we're going to make it out of it.
We asked Kyle this question as well. I'd love to hear your response to it. But where's the balance lie between being the boss and being the man with the the final say, and then kind of being that teacher and the coach, and having the personal relationships with your staff?
Yeah, I think probably some of the best lessons I learned as I was coming up through my career was when people kind of handed me the reins, said, Mike, like, here's the outcome I'm looking for, and you need to figure out how to get from point A to point B. So, as a manager, I really try to like enable the guys on our team to make their own decisions, come up with a way again to get from point A to point B, and that stimulates thought. It gives it makes people um, feel engaged, and it helps them grow. Where I don't think as a manager, if I go out every day and say like, here's exactly what I want to get done, and like I'm going to give you 7 steps that you need to follow to get there, like I don't think you're really helping that individual, right? So certainly delegating, allowing people to take responsibility for different goals and initiatives, and then holding those people accountable, but also like the culture on our team, knowing that like as a member of our team, no one should hold you more accountable than yourself, right? So that's kind of how I go about things.
You come into that role at Oakmont, and you mentioned, the standard there, the culture there, and all of that. It's obviously a very high pressure role to begin with. The
Yep.
expectations set forth by the membership. How did you balance the nerves? Were you nervous coming into it? Was there some level of timidness almost coming into that role? How did you manage the potential stress of coming into such a role with such demanding expectations, and then obviously having Dave kind of over your shoulder the whole time? How did you kind of mentally get through the stress of being the guy at Oakmont?
Was it stressful? Yes. Have I acquired the skills through my career to deal with stress in a positive manner? Yes. And like I'll go back again to like working for Dick Bader as a 19-year-old and feeling like I was under the gun every single minute of every single day. Like at the time I didn't realize it, but like all that was doing was building mental toughness and my ability to handle stress. Where you go through experiences like that for enough years, like when stressful situations arise, you're able to just take a deep breath, like stay calm, cool, and collected, and you're able to identify the problem and find a solution, right? So did I feel pressure coming back here? Yes. I wouldn't say I felt super stressed. I knew I had support in Dave. I knew I had support in the team here. And furthermore, I think the Oakmont membership is really unlike anything on earth. And obviously I'm biased, but you look at the Oakmont history, right? Founded in 1903. Oakmont's hosted more championships than any other course in the country. And our membership embrace that. And I think they embrace it unlike any other membership anywhere, right? Where you hear stories of all the time, like, clubs that host majors and their membership, they don't want to lose the golf course for a big period of any given year. Oakmont's not like that. Our membership loves hosting championships. They realize it's part of the fabric of this club. And furthermore, they just take such pride in not only how the golf course is presented, but even more so the playability of the golf course, where everything we do here comes down to firm, fast conditions. And I know that's cliche in our industry, but we kind of try to take it to a different level where, I remember 15 years ago when I started, like, 13 was fast. Right now, like the expectation on a daily basis is 14 plus. When we have member events here, we get them rolling as fast as we can, and it's not uncommon that we'll go out and cut greens 8 times and roll them 8 times and top dress between those. And we'll get them, well over 16 on a stimp for member events. And they love it, right? They love going out and, 4-putting greens and watching their guests who are 3 handicaps come out and can't break 100. And it's just such a special place. And this membership, the pride that they take in the club and the support that they give our team, I just don't think there's anything like it. And I have to like kind of pinch myself and realize that like we are like well into 2025 now, and the US Open is indeed, I think we're at like 108 days, something like that now. But The reality is we're in a great spot. The cool thing about championships at Oakmont is we really don't change much from like a green approach fairway tee standpoint. You know, there's this kind of myth that people say, you know, Oakmont slows down greens for the U.S. Open, and you know, in reality, like yes, there are certainly occasions where we get our greens faster than we would ever be allowed to present them for a U.S. Open for our membership. However, like, you know, our target speeds for US Open are really what we're targeting day in and day out. So from a, you know, playing surface standpoint, none of that really changes. The rough, that's really the biggest change. We'll be maintaining some pretty deep, dense rough out here. So we're certainly putting work into that, certainly ramping up like every imaginable detail we possibly can going into the US Open. But right now, USGA actually started their build out process this past Monday. So we got semi after semi rolling in, coordinating all of that. USGA is a great partner. They've been unbelievable to work with. And then on our end, just all the really kind of logistics, right? About we expect to bring in about 50 volunteers for advanced week and about probably a total of about 180 volunteers, including some of our partners and sponsors for championship week. So it's a really cool thing. You know, a lot of Oakmont alumni coming back, guys within network that I've been a part of, and then, you know, guys coming from all around the globe, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, all over Europe and beyond. So, you know, making sure that those guys who sacrifice their time, you know, during a really busy part of the year, that they come in here and have a unparalleled experience. That's kind of what we're focusing on at this point. And then, you know, it's probably been one of the more challenging winters we've had in Pittsburgh in years. Last couple of winters, you know, we were out working all winter, like didn't have frozen ground conditions, no snow. This year, it's been kind of the polar opposite, very cold, quite a bit of snow. We're snow covered as we speak. So at this point, we're looking forward to getting back out onto the golf course, you know, really start dialing in the details and getting this thing ready to go.
So yeah, only a couple months. That's exciting. And then the snow must only melt.
You know, typically, like, again, you know, it's been unseasonably cold here. And we've got a lot of snow this year. So it's pretty rare that we have any snow whatsoever going into March.
There you go.
Looking at the, you know, 2-week weather forecast, I think all this snow is going to melt next week. So we should be aligned. You know, the funny thing at Oakmont, I think this will be like my 10th season on property in some capacity, is, you know, by the time you get to kind of that late April time frame, like the course is always in the same position. Doesn't matter if you have a cold winter or warm winter, kind of always get from point A to point B. You know, our biggest thing right now is, you know, getting through this winter. We have 100% POA annual greens, so winter injuries are always a massive concern here. Probably lose more sleep over that, losing grass in the wintertime than we do in season. So we're getting pretty close. We've had, you know, we feel positive at this point, but getting through the next 2 weeks, making sure the greens come out of winter in a positive way. That's kind of the biggest thing on our mind.
You must have those things pretty packed in tight.
Yeah, we do. We use permeable covers on all our greens. We don't necessarily just go out and put them out every winter. We put covers out when environmental conditions necessitate it, right? So we put our covers out this year, I think the day before New Year's. They've been on ever since, because it's, you know, we've had kind of sustained temps in the teens, even single digits. We've had snow cover. So we do that. We also, you know, I don't know if you've heard, but there's not many trees at Oakmont left. So it kind of sits up on this big ridge. So we get pretty profound wind out here in the winter months as well. So we have wind breaks on all of our greens as well. We use really construction fence to try to break that wind a little bit before it hits the putting surfaces directly. So over the next few weeks, we'll monitor that, pull those covers off at the right time for the turf, and be ready to roll.
Do you guys have those chainsaws, Thunder and Lightning? Do you have them encased somewhere in the maintenance facility? Did Mark get that set up?
No, there's no memorial for a chainsaw at Oakmont. However, something pretty cool is and he actually sadly passed away this year, but one of the more notorious Oakmont members, Mr. Bank Smith, he was the grounds chair back in the 90s, and he really spearheaded the inception of the tree removal process at Oakmont. You look at pictures from the 1994 U.S. Open, and every single hole was tree lined. When the Phones family founded the club back in 1903, there were no trees out here. So Mr. Smith, he recognized how the trees were impacting not only how the course played, but also, how they were taking away from the original Phones vision. He started cutting them down, and I've heard all sorts of numbers from, ranging from 5,000 to 20,000 trees that have been removed over the last, call it 35 years at Oakmont, but it's certainly been a lot. And I think he's really the one who probably initiated like the restoration of the golf course back to the Phones vision. So there is a memorial to him that they did that was carved out of a piece of a oak tree from Oakmont that was removed. So pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool. Rightfully so. That's awesome. Talk about the balance. You mentioned you've got potentially upwards of 180 volunteers coming in during tournament week, 50 for advance week. How do you balance staying focused on golf course conditions and preparation versus the administrative side of making sure everything's ready to go come tournament week?
Yep. So first, rely on our team, right? They're the leaders, not just our assistants, but every single guy in that break room. They're going to have an objective, a goal. They're going to have something that they're solely focused on going into the U.S. Open. And everyone's going to take pride in that and dial that one thing in. And that's how we're going to get as close as we can to get to perfection. During the championship week itself, I think about that a lot. You got 180 bodies on site, which, that in addition to our, call it 45-person team, you need those guys at Oakmont because, we have to get the entire golf course prepped. Don't forget, like you can see the entire course from any vantage point. So we basically have to be off the golf course by the time they tee off 1 and 10 at 6:45 on Thursday and Friday. So when you have 210 bunkers, 330,000 square feet of bunker surface area, it's 40 to 50 guys out raking bunkers every morning. And then, the last few championships, knocking wood, we're not going to have this year, but we've had substantial rainstorms. So that's necessitated having all 200 people out, putting the bunkers back together. We have much better technology in our bunkers now. It'll be less of a problem if we do have inclement weather. But I think the biggest thing during championship week is all of the experience that's coming back, where we'll have something like 20 past Oakmont assistants on property that week. And they'll kind of be in, leadership, kind of captain roles. So, every single one of them will have kind of one responsibility. Hey, like, Doug Drugo, you're standing with this group on this green and you're watching everything that's going on. You're checking mower heights and clip yields and rollers, making sure there's no leaks, strips, skips, you name it. And there'll be someone in that kind of position on everything that gets done. So like when those guys roll in, it gives you a little bit of a sense of relief, and you have just that many more eyes on the property, and it will definitely feel good.
It takes a village, right? So you're going to need all the help you can get. And I think you'd have to be a little bit of a psycho to say like, well, there's no stress. Like there's going to be stress. There's going to be things that are tough. But I'd love to ask you about what are you most looking forward to for the championship?
The thing I'm looking forward to most is, I think first of all, like, we're going to be entirely focused on the product that we present out there, right up until the last putt. So there's not going to be much time to sit back and reflect and take it in. But hopefully we have great weather. Hopefully the championship is representative of the club's and the members' expectations. And then, once that last putt drops, I'm looking forward to, sharing the entire week, but mostly the completion of a successful event that can go down in club history with, my family, my friends within the network. I really don't have any friends outside of this network, so
You're
pretty
too
much
busy.
everyone's going to be here, and I think that's going to be the most special part. And just like every single guy on our team, this is such a integral part of their career, and just making sure that the guys on our team, they get to enjoy this experience. It's my job to be stressed and handle the stress. It's their job to take everything in and enjoy every minute of it.
You mentioned being a big Tiger Woods fan. You can just find a way to, follow him around and be
Yeah, I'm
on
not gonna
his different
lie.
recovery team.
Yeah, we get, plenty of athletes and tour players and celebrities that come through here, and you always try to keep those people alone and don't bother them, get in their way. I would tell you, if I have the opportunity to shake Tiger Woods' hand, I will certainly take it, because I probably would not be doing what I'm doing now if it wasn't for him.
That's awesome.
Turf Today is also brought to you by Flash Weather AI. And if you haven't gone to our link in bio on Instagram to get the free trial of this platform, you guys definitely need to check it out. These guys have amazing weather updates on this app, and one of the best parts about it is the lightning strike detection. They can detect lightning from miles or kilometers away, depending on where you are. Go to our link tree and our link in bio on Instagram at Turf Today, and you guys will be able to get a free trial from Flash Weather AI.
I see the big glass case behind you, and obviously such a historic place. You've got to have some really cool memorabilia and items in your office. What's your favorite piece of memorabilia that's hanging in your office?
So this is here. I'll pull a couple out. So
Nice.
So first of all, kind of cool backstory. I think this happened back in the 90s, well before my time, but
Were you even born in the 90s yet, Mike?
1988.
Okay.
I'm a child
There you
of the 80s. So this, like, all the wood in this office came off oak trees on the golf course, so that's cool. But even cooler, this trophy case, allegedly, what I've been told, at one point was in Arnold Palmer's office back in the day at Latrobe Country Club. So I'm a big kind of golf knick-knack guy. I collect a lot of golf books, but kind of two things, and they kind of relate back to my first, really big mentor, Dick Bader. But that summer I worked for him, my mom took my shoe from that summer and had it bronzed.
Wow,
So
look at
this
that.
was the Merrill that I wore back in that summer. I think most people do that for like baby shoes and military boots and stuff like that. But that summer was very memorable in many ways. And then, let's just say when I was 19 years old, I didn't have the same levels of like personal hygiene and, doing laundry every day that I may have now. So, Mr. Bader used to like to, kind of pick on me on that, and, tell me I
I've heard
smell
about your
every day.
nickname.
Yeah. He did call me Stinky. I will admit that back then. So, I think several years later, after I worked for him, he came to visit Oakmont. He walked in and gave me this bar of soap that's like, it's Coast deodorant soap. I think it's from like 1972, and he signed his name on it and literally threw this bar of soap at me when he walked in the office. So,
Oh, it's
I have a lot of
awesome.
cool things in here. One of the old Pennzoil, Arnold Palmer toy tractors, and a stuffed Oakmont squirrel. But yeah, kind of like to kind of look at this sometimes. Helps you reflect on all the stuff you've been through your career.
A bar of soap signed by Dick Bader.
Yeah.
That is absolutely priceless. I love it.
Yep.
How
Yep.
much would that go for in an open
He is
market?
one of a kind. And again, like, if it wasn't for him, probably not sitting where I'm sitting today.
Yeah, we had that conversation with Kyle earlier, and then even when Brian and I were talking, there's so many people that have helped us along our ways, and we don't know if we'd still be in this career or doing this if it wasn't for the men and women that kind of came before us. And in the same
Yeah.
time, it's up to people like yourself to turn around and pass that on to the people coming up behind you. And I'd love to hear about what you think about, yourself and being a mentor and really trying to help kids come into a place like Oakmont and move on, because that's how we're going to help grow the industry.
That is the best part of our jobs as superintendents, right? Seeing guys come in to our programs, move on, and find their own success within the industry. And Oakmont has a long legacy of that. I think a couple of years ago, so when we did our break room, we thought of this idea of, how they have like honor boards hung in locker rooms with past club champions and things like that. We made a board. We called it like Legends of Oakmont. We listed out all the assistants that have moved on from Oakmont into their own head superintendent jobs, and that hangs in our break room right alongside we do various incentive programs each year. So we have an intern of the year, an agronomist of the year, a teammate of the year, and then we have a big brother, little brother program where our agronomists mentor our interns, and they kind of get paired up with those guys. And all of those initiative programs, they have a curriculum that they work through, assignments, everything from, putting together mock grounds committee reports to actually presenting to a mock board that we pull in Oakmont members, and these guys are presenting to those guys, and then, they vote on who did the best job, and then the big brother, little brother, like who did the best job of mentoring an intern. So really cool things. And we bring in guest speakers, and we try to build really an educational experience off the golf course for our guys. So as a mentor, it's the best part of the job, seeing guys go on to their own success. I've never been a superintendent, never will be one, certainly at Oakmont, where like we don't want guys coming here and staying for 10, 20 years, right? Like we want guys to come in, take whatever it is, 3 years, 5 years, learn what they need to learn to succeed within this industry, and then move on to their own success. And, sometimes that's moving out of Oakmont into a assistant role. Sometimes it's moving right into a superintendent role, but, we have a pretty good track record here of, our assistants have got some really great jobs around the country, and we're really proud of that.
Come on, I'm surprised you guys actually have enough room in your break room to have a Legends of Oakmont wall, because you guys have really moved some people along there.
It is pretty wild. Like if you add up all the assistants that have left into superintendent jobs, and then you also look at like other guys that have worked on the team at some point and are now assistants, it's in like the 40-50 range. So
I'm shocked it's only 40-50. I mean,
thinking of all the
interns and
figuring
everything.
that out at some point, but you start getting back into like that 90s, early 2000s range. There are just so many unbelievably talented guys that came through here.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's like trying to trace some of those trees and networks that we've talked about. It's like, it's impossible to put numbers on those guys and track all of them. That's incredible. Are some of those programs things that you inherited, or did you instill those when you got there?
Yeah. So those are all things that Dave D'Alessandro started here when he took over back in 2017. And there's a lot of things I didn't even list. He started a program where our guys went and worked for the Pirates or the Steelers, for a couple of homestands or a home game. All of our interns go and work somewhere else for a week while they're here at Oakmont. So we send guys to many different clubs, but Oakland Hill, Oak Hill, Marion, Moraine, Laurel Valley, Weburn, Appowamus, list goes on and on. So like we do that for our kind of 3-4 month interns. They go there for a week. Those clubs send us a guy for a week. And then a couple years ago, we started taking our 6-month interns and we send them over. I have a very close friend, Joe Buckley, that I interned with at Oak Hill that I still keep in touch with. And he's a superintendent at Geneva Golf Club in Switzerland. So we've sent guys there for 2 weeks the last couple of years. So yeah, Dave started it. At this point we try to find ways to make small improvements every year to those initiative programs. But that ultimately is a big part of the reason we're able to recruit talent here, retain guys. It's all about that educational experience.
It reminds me a lot of that Muirfield University dynamic that Brian would talk about quite a bit.
Yeah, no question.
I want to know for the U.S. Open, I struggled with it when I was very fortunate to play it a couple years ago. I couldn't tell the difference between the approach and the green. Are you guys going to have to kind of mark out those spots for the Open so guys know if they're able to mark their ball or not?
Yeah, that's always a hot topic, right? So Oakmont's obviously our greens are very unique. Probably the closest thing you'll see to 100% POA. It's a very perennial POA, super tight, super upright growth habit, super dense. And we have a lot of that same perennial POA on our approaches. So, like, yes, we mow our approaches at an extremely low height, but I think even more so, it's the type of POA that is on them that is like the reason our greens are the way they are is because of 120 years of kind of immense mechanical stress on them. You can look at old pictures of guys pulling 2-ton rollers across greens that like they were doing the same thing we're doing now, just on a different level, right? So from all those years of stress, this grass has adapted to what it is now. And really everything we've always done to our greens, we also do to our approaches, whether it's aerification, mowing, rolling, spray programs. So the approach grass is pretty similar to the greens, and that's probably what makes it difficult to tell it apart. For the U.S. Open, we'll certainly make some adjustments to make them more visible. From a ruling perspective, we don't want that to become a negative story. But even just things like in a typical week, we might mow green cleanups 3-4 times a week. During a U.S. Open setting, we're mowing those cleanups every single day for weeks on end. So like that's going to increase definition. But yeah, it's certainly something we're highly cognizant of.
How many offers do you guys get to farm out some of that POA? You guys get a lot of people asking you like, let me get.
Yeah, so we Colin Boyd out in Western PA, he's grown a lot of really good grass in for a lot of people. But for decades, he's collected our aerification plugs from Oakmont, grew them in, and he's took that sod all over the place. We had him grow in about 4 acres of POA turf for our restoration project in 2023. So, it's like any POA in the Pittsburgh region is unique because of the environment here, the weather conditions. POA at Oakmont's, kind of ramped up on that end, but yeah, it's pretty cool to see our grass go to other places.
Mike, did you have any highlights from your career? Anything funny or fun that you wanted to bring up today?
I could go on and on and on, but I think at every single place I ever worked, there was a group of people that I was able to connect with on a super high level. And I think one of the things about our industry is like, I'm not saying this in a positive way, but like the reality is like a lot of the people we work with, we we spend more time with those guys than we spend with our families. Not proud of that, but like that's just the reality, right? So that like just building those relationships and going through the years and living in employee housing with other interns and the stories that come out of that those kind of go down in history. But I think back to like my first experience on a golf course at Stowe Acres, and that crew, it was all college and high school kids, and none of
Nice.
them really had turf backgrounds. And we had, it was so fun. Like back then, I'm 15, and I remember like guys would go out like the night before, like aim all the irrigation heads directly at the pin. And then, if I was doing setups next morning when I went to pull the flag stick to change the cup, someone's in the woods with a radio, like punching in a greens program, and all of a sudden all four irrigation heads pop up and are shooting directly at you. So like I could go on and on with like, stupid stories like that I recall from the early days of my career. But you look at that team from Stowe Acres, and it's pretty cool. I think there's like at least 8 guys from that crew that are still within the industry, either as superintendents or working for different vendors through the industry. So that was a really special thing back then. And I still, when I go back home to visit my parents in Sudbury, I still enjoy just like I'll literally just drive over and drive through the parking lot and kind of reminisce for a minute, because those were, pretty impactful times of my life and career.
This has been fantastic, Mike. We appreciate you jumping on and spending some time with us, especially with this busy season that you've got. Yeah, man, we can't wait to watch the Open. Can't wait to be a part of it in some way, shape, or form, and get you back on either before, during, or after again and talk about the experience. So again, thank you so much for taking the time to jump on here with us.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. I really enjoyed it. I think what you guys are doing for the industry is a great thing, and just kind of building awareness for as it relates to what we do as golf course superintendents or anyone in the industry. And I honestly really enjoy listening to these, so enjoy doing it. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming on, Mike. You did a great job, man. People are going to love this one.
Great, thank you. Look forward to catching up with you guys in a couple months.
Yep. And then we'll get into the nitty gritty stuff at the bar sometime. We'll do our Turf Tales episode there. We can get into the real stories. So.
Yeah, love it.
All right, buddy.
Sounds
Look
good.
forward to seeing you soon.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, take care, man. Have a good weekend.
Yep, see ya.
And now it's time for another installment of Ask the Agronomist, presented by the Andersons. From tee to green, goal to goal, and shoots to roots, nothing is off limits.
Ask the Agronomist, featuring Ben Pease from the Andersons. Our question today comes in from Cade Ring. What is your preferred spreader method? Wheel to wheel or throw to throw?
Oh, this is a good one. I mean, the turf community seems to be rather split. Are you going to apply wheel to wheel, or are you going to apply throw to throw? So, a couple things to consider if you are doing the wheel to wheel. You make one pass going one direction, then your pass coming back, you're throwing all the way back to your tracks. So there, you're really making a double application. So either you have to cut your rate in half. So let's say you wanted to apply your fertilizer or Fert Plus control product at 2 pounds per thousand, or let's say 3 pounds per thousand. You have to recalibrate your spreader to go at 1.5 pounds of product per thousand. So while that is possible with some products, maybe your smaller SGN products, it's harder to get calibrated a spreader to go that low, as a rate, pounds of product per thousand. It's tougher to get a calibration on some products at that wheel to wheel half rate. So if depending on what you're using, you could go wheel to wheel, but it might not work out with every product. So if it's a product that doesn't work out to be able to cut the rate in half, then throw to throw is probably the best option. So, looking at some higher nitrogen fertilizers, if you want to put out a pound of N, you're probably looking at, below 2.5 pounds per thousand, or if you even want to put out a half pound of granular nitrogen, then you're really getting into low application rates. So you wouldn't be able to probably calibrate a spreader to do that wheel to wheel version. So you're going to be stuck with the option of using throw to throw. Now, the little caveat with throw to throw is we're still overlapping a little bit, because at the edge of that arc, that spreader arc, we're not getting as much out to the edges. So, we still do need to overlap in 10 to 20%, a foot or so, but that's built into the spread pattern of most spreaders. So even throw to throw, you're not throwing just to where those last particles fell down. We're still going to overlap a touch by a foot or two, but it's definitely not overlapping wheel to wheel. So a couple things to consider are, what's your application rate, and can you cut it down into a half rate to do that wheel to wheel? If not, then throw to throw is best. And another thing to consider is your labor hours, what you have available. Obviously, going wheel to wheels, you're walking twice as much because you're not covering as much ground. So think about who's doing the application, how much time you have. Do you need to stay ahead of play? Things like that can kind of say, well, this application, we've got some buffering time. We can do wheel to wheel. We've got a small SGN material that we can put out at a half rate. But if you're just doing tees with a larger SGN and you want to do up and down on each tee, you've covered it with throw to throw. So things to consider with the product, and then things to consider with labor and timing as well.
Beautiful. Well, I would just ask you about calibration. Is there anything you can do to make sure you are kind of getting that expected throw?
Good question. Yeah, I did mention calibration there when you're thinking about your rates. So we can use a catch can that attaches to the bottom of our spreader and catches most of what's coming out. And then we measure what's coming into that catch can box to calibrate. And, that's where you'll find out, can I cut the rate in half? Or maybe I can't. Maybe I can't dial it down that far. So you can do it that way, or you can put out catch cans across the whole spread width and see what falls in. You'll notice that there's a lot more material right closer to your spreader than there is further out. So that's where I'm talking about that. Even if you're doing a throw to throw, you're still overlapping a little bit. And doing that, putting out cookie sheets or, some sort of shallow catch containers that you can drive through with the spreader will tell you how far you really have to overlap when you're doing the throw to throw, or how far you don't have to overlap. And that'll change with SGN of the material, consistency of the material. So it's good to recalibrate every spring. Even if you've used the product before, it would just take a few minutes and run it through your spreader and throw the calibration box on, or do the catch cans, and you just have that much more confidence in your applications that you're spending a lot of time and money out there to do. So I know we've got a catch can that we do sell that attaches right onto our spreaders. And, of course, there's all kinds of other good trays or homemade versions that you can do as well. But calibration is key. Let's make sure we're putting out what we think we're putting out.
Yes, definitely calibrate those spreaders. Very, very important. Well, thank you so much. This has been another installment of Ask the Agronomist presented by the Andersons. If you guys have a question you want to get into us and asked on the show, reach out to us or reach out to somebody from the Andersons.
He's awesome. I mean, that was hilarious. To have him. We showed up to that party on Sunday when we were out in San Diego, and one of the first guys that comes up, it's Mike. He's like, "When am I coming on? I want to come on. Let's do this." Dude, you're on our list. Trust me. I was just thinking we'd give you some time. Wait till we get closer to the open. No, I'm ready. Let's do this, man.
That's so cool. And I love hearing about programs like that. Like, that's obviously a property I've never been to, just seen it on TV, but to hear about the culture and the history and how elevated everything is there, all the programs they have built and stuff. Like, if you are really serious about this and you want to go and have a solid internship, that's a great option for you.
Yeah, really, really good spot. They definitely are doing things the right way. And I loved hearing about some of his, mentorship programs that they have there. That's something I think that's really cool, very unique.
Yes.
Something I thought a lot about, how to incorporate more of that in this industry. But the fact that they've got that implemented there and have an established and formalized program to help kind of move people along and mentor them, I think that is just unbelievable. I'd love to see something like that. Um, Spread out around the country and more facilities doing something like that. And again, more of a formalized. I know a lot of places obviously already kind of do that in a less structured setting, but I think that's just absolutely awesome.
hmm Yeah, it sounds phenomenal, and it's excited for the tournament, stressed out for the tournament. But I think when we do talk to him, whether it's during or after, he's going to be in a bit of a different headspace and be able to be a little bit more open about stuff. So it should be exciting.
Yeah, yeah, it's going to be cool.
It's right around the corner. It's funny how
Yeah,
you play
June.
such an amazing tournament, just like Augusta, although Augusta's a
Yeah,
little bit more south, but it's kind of the beginning of the year and things are still getting going and growing and everything. So it's kind of a tight window for them to get it all ready to go. But I mean, 45 people plus 100 volunteers. And when he brings in some of these volunteers, you're bringing in some of the best, right? It's not
yeah,
just picking people off the list. Like they're bringing in solid assistants and superintendents and people he's worked with. So yeah, that team is going to be dialed in
yeah.
come tournament time.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun week, and we've talked about it on this show several times. I think that's most superintendents that are hosting championships like that. That's usually their favorite part is just having all these guys come back and
hmm
the camaraderie there. But yeah, I mean that place is going to be dialed in. They're going to have, like you said, some of the best. The eyes on every single aspect of prepping that golf course for the U.S. Open. It's going to be fun, and it's a lot of work too, though. That's why I always ask that question: what's it like from an administrative standpoint? Getting that, it's a lot of people to try and coordinate travel schedules with and order, whatever items you're getting them, getting the meals all coordinated, getting tents built, getting all these things ready to give this unique experience to all these volunteers that are coming in. I mean, it's a lot to think about. Well, oh, by the way, you've also got this golf course that you've got to make sure is ready to roll. You're thinking about a lot of stuff. So, he needs all 45 of those guys on his team to make sure every last detail and all the coordination efforts are dialed in and in place come June when it's go time.
Yeah. So I'm a list guy. I'll make like a
Yeah.
Thursday list, a Friday list, Saturday list, and kind of put things where I need to get them done. I learned that years ago, and it's always really helped me stay organized. Could you imagine how long those lists would be?
No.
Trying to host something like that, you would be constantly adding things to the list. Call this person, reach out to this, make sure you do this, don't forget this, talk to this. Like it would just be the longest list. It would never end. So when he talks about, that final putt dropping in the hole and being able to kind of, breathe a sigh of relief and be able to just enjoy it with everybody. Well, no shit. Like those lists would be so long of things that you need to make sure are happening. And he's probably at that point, he's probably hands off, right? Like he's not out cutting greens, he's not out on the sprayer. He's the one in the background kind of making sure everything is happening. But yeah, the stress and the length of those lists would be wild. So,
Oh, I
kudos
know.
to people that do that stuff.
Yeah. And that's kind of like kind of like what we were talking with Kyle about. It's being able to lean on those other people around you. Fortunately for Mike and for Kyle, like we talked to earlier, they've been around this stuff. They've been around the people that host these events on an annual basis. They've been a part of big championships throughout their career. So, lucky for them, they're very fortunate to have that network that's going to help them. But man, yeah, it's when you're in the heat of it, it's a lot. And like you said, there's a lot of touch points. There's a lot of list items on their programs and on their to-do list that they've got to check off. And yeah, it's overwhelming. But again, that's why you've got great people around you you can lean on and help get eyes on different parts of the property and make sure things are going smoothly.
hmm It's not their first rodeo, so we're fortunate in that sense.
Yeah. So, all right, man. We'll have a good weekend, and we'll.
Okay, perfect. Have a good
All right,
one,
man.
buddy. Good
You
job.
too. We'll see you.
A big thank you to everybody that was a part of the show today. It was huge to have Mike McCormick on. Really appreciate that. We hope we can be back with him towards championship time in a couple months. Big shout out to our sponsors, the Toro Company. We appreciate everything you do to facilitate all of our needs. We also need to shout out Ben Pease, the agronomist from the Andersons, as well as Mike Anderson, who has been working very hard behind the scenes to make everything happen for Ask the Agronomist. And again, if you guys have something either turf related or agronomy related or a question about a product that the Andersons have, do not hesitate to reach out to them because they are definitely there to help you. We also need to shout out our other sponsors, Standard Golf. I've had a couple chats with those guys lately. Oh boy. We're very proud of those guys because they work very hard. They got a lot of great product. Also, Flash Weather AI, like we mentioned earlier, sign up for that free trial. It's a really good program. You know, it's cool to learn it right now in the spring as things are heating up. The lightning thing, hopefully it can save some lives. You get notifications to your phone. You can push it through your golf club. We also got to shout out the USGA. We've been working very hard with these guys with a lot of the stuff that we have coming up with them. Very, very proud to be on board with those guys. And last but not least, Apex 10. We keep announcing there's going to be a giveaway coming out with those guys, and there definitely is. We're just working on some stuff, a couple delays in production for some of the merchandise that these guys are making. So it is coming. Head on over to Apex 10 Life on Instagram to be ready for that contest. Taking us home today, do a little Boston Levi. It's been a while. This is their cover of Feeling Like This. And if you don't feel something, I don't know what to tell you.
I've got no regrets right now. The air is so cold and low. Wanna go in your room. Let me take off your clothes. Show me the way to bed. Show me the way you move. Fuck it, it's such a blur. But I love all the things you do. Because fate fell short this time. Your smile fades in the summer and rain. Your hand in mine, and I'll leave when I wanna. Where do we go from here? Turn all the lights down now. Smiling from ear to ear. Our breathing has gotten too loud. Show me the bedroom floor. Show me the bathroom mirror. We're taking this way too slow. God, take me away from here. Because fate fell short this time. Your smile fades in the summer and rain. Your hand in mine, and I'll leave when I wanna. This place was never the same again after you came and went. How can you say you meant anything different to anyone? Standing alone on the street with a cigarette. On the first night we met, look to the past and remember a smile. Maybe tonight I can sleep for a while. I'm not in the scene, I think I'm falling asleep. And all that it means is I'll always be dreaming of fate. Fell short this time. Your smile fades in the summer and rain. Your hand in mine, and I'll leave when I wanna. Because fate fell short this time. Your smile fades in the summer and rains. Your hand in mine, and I'll leave